So let's talk now about triangular stepping, or combat stepping as I like to think about it, because it's very rare actually in combat that we're going to be doing straight forwards and straight backwards, maybe in the very early part of the fight. But triangular stepping is when we step to an angle. What this allows us to do is, as our opponent might be coming in on a straight line, or if they're changing the fight, we want to change the angle of the fight so we can address our opponent in a new and different line. This allows us to cut and get behind their sword, be much more defensive, as we are also being offensive. And so when we step to an angle, we need to make sure of is that we rotate our body back into this nice solid position where we've triangulated our weight and our leverage into this straight line with our open hips at about 45 degrees, right? If what happens for a lot of people when they step, they try to step to the side and they step over with one foot, they cut, and what happens now is all of a sudden I'm off balance because there's nothing behind me keeping me in line. What I've done is I've transitioned from being here in the fight to being here in the fight, and this is not a good place to be. What I want to make sure I do when I step to an angle is, as I step, I want to step again with that back foot and rotate on the ball of my feet, my whole body into the new angle based off of where my opponent is and how far I've stepped. So if I just take a basic 45-degree angle on that step, instead of stepping straight forwards, right, I'm now going to step about to a 45-degree angle. What I want to do is step out and rotate on my foot while I move my back foot. So every step uses 2 feet worth of mechanics, right? 2 footsteps of mechanics. This is not a step. That's half the step. A full step moves both feet. So now, as I rotate my back foot, I can create the new angle. What I want to worry about is over-rotating that back foot, and now it's behind me in a way that I'm not facing my opponent in the right fashion. And all of that is very dependent on how deep I step, whether I take a 45-degree angle or 20-degree angle or 80-degree angle, and where my opponent is moving as I do this. So I want to be able to pick and choose what angle I'm making so that I can make just an easy, simple change. Or if it's a very broad change, I can step wherever I want and still make a full rotational pass to change the angle of the fight. And now I'm addressing a person who's essentially almost 90 degrees from where I was. Maybe they're moving this way as I'm moving that way, and I'm making a full, complete step. But by rotating on the ball with my foot and by using my back foot and back hip to stabilize the angle at which I want to stay in the fight, I can now create a sort of an infinite number of angles of which I can step. So when we practice, we start by picking an angle which we're stepping and imagining the rotation that we want to put into practice. And we start by stepping out and cutting, right? We end up in that nice stable position. We can come back to guard. I can choose a new angle. Step out, rotate with that foot. Step out, rotate with that foot. We want to make sure it's nice and easy, that we're supporting the action. We're ending up facing the direction we want to be facing. Again, this can be done with any cut, upwards, horizontal, right, downward, right, so that I can step out, downward. All of these things can be incorporated in the angle which I'm stepping. When I do this, what it allows me to do is actually, when I start to address a pel or a target that is stable, I can start changing the angles of the fight without just getting too close to it. What happens a lot is if I only use forward and backwards stepping, when I start to address my target, and I cut out, and now when I want to make my next cut, I get in here, and that's not really where I want to be in the fight. So by utilizing my angular steppings, I can actually step out and creating the space and the new angles for where I want to be when I fight. Okay, so let's take a look at the angle of how I'm addressing my target and incorporating all of these different stepping actions into cutting patterns against the target. Reminders, I want to throw my blow so that my foot lands when it hits the target. I want to use both feet when I step, so I'm rotationally addressing the sword. I want to cut through good angles with good cutting mechanics. So I start in my guard, which is for now we're sticking with Von Tog. And when I step out, now I can range and I'm too far away to hit it without a step. So I want to make that passing step as I come forwards. I've got a nice good angle on my sword. I connected at the time when my foot hit the target. So now I'm just going to incorporate that. I'm going to step to an angle with my left foot as I step around and make a different cut, this time horizontally. And if I get stuck here, this is not where I want to be. I want to make sure I'm addressing the whole target with my whole body. I don't want to just stand in front and make cuts like this. This is not incorporating my hip movement into my targets, and now I'm becoming vulnerable when I start making combat actions. So we start the extension, step out, step out, step out, step out, upwards, upwards, downwards, horizontal, horizontal. I can start stepping backwards, and now I can see that my range, I'm utilizing my range. So I can step forwards, forwards, out, backwards, backwards. Right? Choosing which step I'm doing as I'm addressing my target. Forwards, forwards, backwards, backwards. Right? These are all things that I get to incorporate, and I can see where my range is as I start to cut my target. Right? Remember that I want my hands on the far side of my target angle. Come back to guard. At this point, it's really up to you how you want to address your cutting patterns. Just make sure you're using all of them and mixing it up and choosing what you want to do as you do it. You can pre-decide what pattern you're going to do, or you can decide while you're going if that works for you. But basically, I just want to be making good cuts. I'm not powering through anything. I'm just making sure that fundamentally I'm defended as I cut, that I'm in range, and that if I'm too far, I want to adjust this. This is not where I want to be fighting my fight. So if I see that I'm getting too close, I either want to back up, or I want to make an angular step to the outside and cut. For the most part, when I'm cutting from my right, I'm stepping to my right. And when I'm cutting from my left, I'm stepping to my left. This keeps up good rotation in my body as I throw these blows. But for more advanced, you don't really, it's not super required, just that you know that if you're going to start with your front foot forwards, or you're going to cut from your left and step with your right, you still want to make nice, good mechanical actions. Because I'm stepping this direction, I want my weight going in this direction. I don't want to be stepping over here and reaching this direction. That's bad, right? So if I step forwards with my front foot, as I cut this way, step this way, you see that I'm stepping in the direction of where I'm sending my weight, and I'm cutting behind me in those cuts. It's a little bit different of a cut of a where you hit as you step, as you start to incorporate that into your practice. So you've got stepping behind your cut, you've got kind of stepping in front of your cut, depending on how you want to look at that and break it down. All of these things can be incorporated into your practice. Remember, keep your arms going forwards, keep that weight and balance over your balls of your feet. 1/3, 2/3 of your weight in one direction as you go. I look forward to, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, you want to hit me up, please let me know. Feedback is really appreciated. So have a good time, train well.